Hey guys, the government and the media are continuing to lie to you with regard to financial data. All right, and I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly how they're doing that. And they know they're lying. Now, the danger in this is that if you buy into the data that they are publicizing and crowing about, it can cause you to get a false sense of economic security and start to do things with your money that are actually detrimental in these interesting economic times. So we're going to look at this data that they are lying about, namely the unemployment number and the inflation number. We'll look at a couple of others as well, and we're going to show you what you need to actually be doing in light of the real data. And this is real data, man. This is coming from government bureaus, all right? Not from me, okay? So we're going to take a long look at that. Listen, I want you to go ahead and hit subscribe. I want you to hit like as well. Hit that thumbs up. And if you don't like the content, hit thumbs down twice. Emphasize your dislike. In the meantime, let me just share this with you. It is so quiet here. It's incredible. I'll give you a look. This is freedom. This is freedom. This is what financial independence looks like. The ability to just enjoy God's creation. All right, guys, let's get into it. Okay, MCE crew, hike over. Now let's talk about these two metrics that the media and the government are constantly, consistently, repeatedly lying to you about. And let's talk about why that matters, why it matters to your personal economy. We're going to start off with inflation. Now, as we know, we got the inflation numbers. Said inflation was up over 5% June over June. We're going to get new numbers in July. I'm sure they will, not show a decrease. Will be great if we just stagnate, but I think it's going to show even higher inflation from the year spanning July 2020 to July 2021. Now, here's the thing. Did you know inflation does not include price increases for food or energy? All right. Core inflation excludes those items. Now, on a daily basis, I would imagine that if you're anything like me, you're consistently spending money on food. Okay, that's obvious. We have to eat. And you're consistently spending money on energy. All right, that energy be in the form of filling up your tank, be in the form of, paying your gas and electric bill when you want to heat your house or cool your house, or if you want to have lights. Okay, so two of the most common expenses, they're ubiquitous expenses. Everybody has them. All right. Even if you are someone who unfortunately is currently experiencing homelessness, you're still exposed to inflation anytime you purchase, food. All right. So that's just incredibly misleading to have a structure set up whereby the two most common expenses in everyone's life, no matter whether you're rich or dirt poor, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they're spending money on these items. And again, an individual who is just scraping by is also spending money on these items. Even if they don't have a house, if they do any public transportation, they're having energy fees passed on to them. So very misleading. Now, here's the thing. They took those metrics out of inflation during the 1980s. Prior to that, these two metrics, food and energy, were included. So if we included food and energy into the current calculation of core inflation, inflation would be over 13%. Instead, it is, without those two metrics, it is just under 6%. Okay? Now, when you talk about inflation, 6% looks, or under 6%, looks a hell of a lot better than 13%. But when you're going out there actually spending money because they've done this little magic trick, you're still exposed to the reality of the pre-1980s definition of inflation. In the news, I read a lot of news, and I read papers like the Wall Street Journal, and I rarely come across anyone who makes that distinction. So you don't hear anyone talking about the fact that Americans are exposed to 13% inflation in reality, okay? And that makes this picture look a lot different when you talk about where this economy is. Now, what should you be doing about that? Well, you shouldn't be, you should be paying attention to that higher number, number one. Now let's talk about the next metric, unemployment. They're saying that unemployment is about 5.4%. And that's because the unemployment rate that is being reported is the U3 rate. However, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it is the federal government's department that deals with calculating unemployment. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has other unemployment rates, most notably the U6 rate. Most economists agree that the U6 rate is the most accurate reflection of true unemployment in the country. It's the most accurate data set to give us a read on what actually is going on in the labor market. If we go by the U6 rate, we're over 9% unemployment. The U6 rate calculates unemployed, underemployed, and discouraged workers, okay? In that way, they're getting a fuller picture of the true situation. And you might hear my cat's very upset about how the media is misreporting these details, apparently. So these are two metrics that you're hearing. You're hearing, oh, inflation, yeah, it's up a little, over 5%, when in fact it's being reported that way because the two most common expenses are not taken into account in core inflation. And then you're hearing that the unemployment situation looks a lot rosier than it really is because of the U3 rate that's being reported, not the U6. Okay, and as far as the U3, all it is the total number of people that report being unemployed on a survey divided by the total labor force. Again, the U6 goes further in taking unemployed, taking people who are marginally attached to the workforce, part-time workers, seasonal workers, all of that other stuff, and calculating it into the equation. Another thing that's important to remember when the unemployment numbers are calculated, it's not based on the amount of people who are actually collecting unemployment insurance. A lot of people think that it is, but it isn't. Actually, the Bureau of Labor Statistics takes a survey, a monthly survey of about 60,000 households in a country of well over 300 million, whatever. I'm no mathematician. Maybe this works, but I think basically what it does is it helps to confuse the data and make it play well for the government when the reality is a lot different. So they only look at 60,000 households. All right, so we know that the numbers are being fudged, okay? We know that these economists and these mathematicians and these government types have gotten in there and they've decided to manipulate these numbers for reasons that do not benefit the general public, do not benefit the poor, do not benefit the middle class. All right, so what do we do with that? Well, you got to watch your debt, okay? Don't feel as though this environment is, all rosy based on unemployment and inflation and other numbers as well. Don't believe the hype, basically. What you have to do is you have to be very judicious about paying down and paying off debt. Keep yourself in a position where you're not owned or you're not a debt slave. And I don't have a problem with debt. Don't get me wrong. Debt is a financial tool if used correctly. However, it's just like a hammer. You can use it to build a house or you can use it to bash your brains in which case it would be a detrimental use. So go ahead and make sure you pay down that debt. Get debt under control to the extent that you can, especially any high interest credit card debt. If you got secured debt on a mortgage, then, that's a different story. We've talked at length about accumulating the money it would take to pay your house off, but why you should not do that you should keep that money working harder for you, because that unsecured debt on that mortgage is typically pretty low and pretty manageable. Now, the other thing you need to do, as I always state, and I don't mind sounding like a broken record on this, you've got to acquire assets. You've got to acquire assets that preferably are, assets that they're going to recognize that 1980s definition of inflation. So if inflation, based on the 1980s definition, is 13%, you're going to need to get a return of greater than that in order to actually have your money grow. And I know that sounds like a tall order, but remember, we've talked about this before. The asset class that, if managed correctly, a lot of caveats in there, if it's managed correctly, the business that you own, okay, and that you manage, if managed properly, if it's in a industry that has the margins that are between 15 and 30%, Small Business Administration says that's what you can expect, between 15 and 30%. So if you want your money to grow, you're in a position where you've got to be looking at, starting your own business, okay? Because that's the only asset class that is going to have that range of return that right now, at least, is over what true inflation is. I'm going to call it true inflation. And I don't need to have graduated from Harvard or have some economist degree to understand that I purchase food and energy every single day, and the prices are inflated, okay? That's real. It's coming out of my pocket. All right, guys, so that's my solution. You got to start a business. What business should I start? Well, you got to find something that you love doing. Now, I love the financial services business. I also love the real estate business. That's what my family does. If you have any questions about getting started in those fields, just drop us a line. You can hit us up on the Facebook page. You can, type in the comments section, and we can communicate that way. But hit us up on the website, mcenow.com. Send us a message. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon.